Every single year, a handful of running backs get overhyped, overdrafted, and absolutely tank your fantasy season. And today, I'm calling them out. The landmines, the red flags, the why did I draft this guy nightmares. This is 5 running backs you must avoid in 2025 or regret it all year. And let's start with a rookie that people want to love in 2025, Quinshon Judkins. Look, coming out of college, he checked a lot of boxes. Great SEC production, a tough downhill runner. Not to mention he got day 2 draft capital for a team that badly needed a running back. When he landed in Cleveland, fantasy Twitter and myself even screamed workhorse. But then, unfortunately, had to pump the brakes a little bit. First, there's also the problem that Cleveland spent a 4th round pick on Dylan Sampson, who, in his own right, is a good running back. Not to mention, he's a much better pass catcher than Quinshon Judkins, something Judkins really did not do in college and probably isn't going to do at the next level. So even if Judkins is the lead back here, Sampson profiles as the clear passing down back. And in today's fantasy football, if you're not catching a ton of passes, you better be scoring a ton of touchdowns. And that's another issue for Judkins in 2025. Because in 2024, the Browns trailed on a league-high 73% of their snaps. That's not bad. That's just catastrophic for a fantasy running back who doesn't have a receiving role. Because running backs average 0.24 fantasy points per snap when their team is trailing. That is 30% less than when playing with the lead. And there's no reason to think the Browns are going to be better in 2025 with the group of quarterbacks they have here. This is going to be a team that's going to be playing from behind more often than not. But it's not just a team context. What about the offensive line? This offensive line was once elite, one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. But last year, ESPN had him ranked at just 14th in run block win rate. So now we're looking at a running back playing for a team that's going to be trailing quite often, isn't going to catch a ton of passes, and is behind an average offensive line. That is not the makings of a fantasy relevant running back. This is the makings of a guy who's sure, every once in a while he's going to fall into the end zone and give you some fantasy relevance, but this is going to be a low floor, low ceiling running back in 2025. I like the talent of Judkins. Maybe I like the long-term prospects, but in 2025, I think he's going to hurt your fantasy team. Next up, fantasy football's favorite underdog, Jaylen Warren. I don't know why people are still so high on Jaylen Warren. It feels like every year people want this guy to be a thing, and every year he's not a thing. He's a 27-year-old running back, and in 3 full seasons, he has 0 finishes as a top 28 running back in terms of points per game, has never hit 1,000 total yards, and just last year, 8.9 PPR points per game. And it's not just that he hasn't gotten the production. This is just not a very good running back. He's basically average or below average in everything. Last year, 23rd in juke rate, 33rd in evaded tackles, 28th in explosive run rate. He's fine. He's not bad, but he's just a guy. And just the guys don't win leagues, and just the guys don't help fantasy teams unless they're in very unique situations, and he's not. And just when it looked like 2025 might finally be his year, nope, the Steelers went out and drafted Caleb Johnson. This guy is basically Najee Harris, but better. He's bigger, he's faster, he can handle that early down work, he can handle that goal line work. That's another problem for Jaylen Warren here. He's not a goal line back. Last year, 40th in red zone touches among all running backs, and he only saw 3 goal line touches all season. That is not going to change with Caleb Johnson there in that backfield. So no touchdown upside, very little receiving upside, not in a great offense, and not going to be the lead back. Please explain why you are still drafting Jaylen Warren to me. Let's stick with another big name, Travis Etienne. Now, thankfully, he's not still being drafted as an RB1, but he's still being drafted, and I don't understand why. Sure, in 2023, he had a breakout season, but let's look a little closer at that season and see how good it was really. That year, he averaged 3.8 yards per carry. He was only 29th in yards created per touch and only a 3.7% breakaway run rate. This is the classic volume masking inefficiency because he had 325 total touches that year, which was 5th most in the NFL. He also scored 12 touchdowns that year. It also helped that the running back they drafted that year, Tank Bigsby, couldn't hold on to the football to save his life, so they couldn't give him any significant touches. But then what did we see in 2024? Bigsby essentially became the lead back. He averaged 4.8 yards per carry and looked much better. Meanwhile, Travis Etienne was still terrible in 2024. 3.7 yards per carry, again, horribly inefficient. His touches dropped from 325 to 189, and he only had 6 games where he played over half the snaps. But Bigsby isn't the only threat to Travis Etienne this year. The Jaguars just spent a 4th-round draft pick on Bashal Tutin, one of the best change of pace pass-catching backs. So now we're looking at Etienne potentially not getting as much early down work thanks to Tank Bigsby, not getting as much passing down work thanks to Bashal Tutin, and not getting as many touchdowns because, why would he score touchdowns when he's not getting as much work? I get that Etienne is not a 2nd-round pick anymore like he was last year, and you think, okay, the value is there. But no, the value is not there. If the guy isn't scoring any fantasy points, it doesn't matter where you draft him. That's not a value. That's just a wasted pick. And if you're ready to get your fantasy football fix on and start drafting right now, you got to check out UnderdogFantasy.com. They have best ball drafts going on all offseason long, including their flagship Best Ball Mania 6, which is going to make multiple millionaires in 2025. Just go to UnderdogFantasy.com, join using promo code ENDGAME, because not only is that going to get you a free pick that you can use among any sport, but also up to $1,000 in bonus cash that you can use to start drafting right now. All right, next up, a player that tricked a lot of people in 2024, including me, Javonte Williams. He now plays for the Dallas Cowboys, and people are getting hyped again. But I ask, why? He already was in a great situation last year. He was the unquestioned lead back for one of the best running offenses in the NFL. Last year, the Broncos had the #1 ranked run block win rate according to ESPN, and Javonte Williams still did nothing on the ground. Not only that, he was horrible when you just look at his overall metrics. 53rd in juke rate, 40th in evaded tackles, 37th in explosive run rate, and just a 2.9% breakaway run rate. He wasn't breaking tackles, he looked slow, and if it wasn't for the fact that he got the 5th most targets among any running backs, because that is what happens in a Sean Payton offense, he would have been completely irrelevant in 2024. Now he moves to a Dallas team that doesn't throw to running backs as often as Denver does, doesn't have an offensive line as good as the one that they had in Denver, and they just drafted Jadon Blue, a younger, more explosive back. But even if Javonte Williams can hold off Jadon Blue here and be the unquestioned lead back in Dallas, what really is the ceiling? Again, this is one of those running backs we want to be good, but just never is good. He's a bad real-life running back, and he's not in a better situation than he was in last year. So why is he going to be better in 2025? I'm passing on Javonte Williams. I don't care how far he falls. I'd rather just take a chance on Jadon Blue or just not draft any Dallas running back, to be honest. And then finally, I hate that it's 2025 and I got to talk about Nick Chubb, but it's 2025. I got to talk about Nick Chubb. Let's rewind. In 2023, he suffers a catastrophic knee injury. In 2024, he comes back and is a shell of himself. Last year, he ranked dead last in yards after contact, 3rd worst in missed tackles forced per attempt, and 4th worst in explosive run rate at only 2%. And now he's coming off a broken foot that he chose not to have surgery on. Sure, this guy once had juice, but it's gone now. And yes, he signed with the Houston Texans, but that should not get you excited. He's now behind an offensive line that ranked 31st in run block win rate last year. They didn't do anything to significantly make it better. And let's not forget, they still have Joe Mixon. They drafted Woody Marks. There's no reason to think Chubb will have consistent volume or touchdowns. Sure, he could score a handful of touchdowns this year, but he could also have many weeks where he's giving you almost nothing and killing your fantasy team. Nick Chubb was once one of the best running backs of his generation. Nick Chubb's going to go down as arguably, maybe a top 30 back of all time. But those days are long gone. Nick Chubb is no longer fantasy relevant, and Houston Texans is not going to change that for Nick Chubb. Please, even if it's your last pick, don't pick Nick Chubb. It's a wasted pick in 2025. He's not going to help you at all. But what will help you in 2025 is checking out all the amazing videos we have for you to make sure you crush your draft. You can find them in our playlist right here.